Welcome aboard once again. Today we're going to look at part 2 of tracking the NDB inbound and outbound. Only this time in part 2 we're going to take a look at intercepting known headings off of an approach plate. We're going to take a look at the approach plate here in just a second, and then we'll take a look at little nav map. The few things that I'd want you to take away from with this video is that we're going to fly this NDB approach precisely as noted on the approach plate. We're going to practice with the heading indicator and the compass. When the angle of correction equals the angle of deflection, we're on course. We're going to find our wind correction angle and use that to track outbound and inbound. The next thing we're going to look at on this flight is that when we are tracking to the NDB or from the NDB, we want to cross that NDB as precise as we possibly can. If we want to be the top gun of the ADF needle, we'll show you how the top guns do it. You've always heard don't chase the needles, like with the VOR when you're in the cone of confusion. Well, I never taught that don't chase the needles, but what happens is our scan will get quicker, we'll make smaller corrections, and we'll do our best to fly right over top of the VOR. Now we can do the same thing with the ADF pointer, but we're always going to be referencing that inbound course or that outbound course. The closer we get to the NDB, and you'll know you're a top gun when that needle just swings right around to the tail of the airplane, or vice versa. It just doesn't take its time walling all the way around 180 degrees and then stop 20 degrees off the tail of the airplane. So we're going to work it out that it will be exactly on the 0 degree on the tail of the airplane, plus or minus any wind correction angle. We're also going to the third area. We're also going to take a look at 2 procedure turns. One I created in little nav map. Let's take a look at the approach plate. This is the same approach we did in part 1, same frequency, 281. Sperry-Von, Alaska. Here is the NDB. We'll scroll in closer. Our whole game plan is we're going to take off on runway 35. We'll go northbound. We'll clear these ridges. Since it is VFR, we'll do our best. And then we'll intercept the 357 bearing outbound. Now I took the liberty of putting a course going out this way, and also a procedure turn will be a left turn and then a right turn back in. We'll intercept the 357 bearing from the station, and our relative magnetic heading will be 177 degrees. We're going to fly these numbers. We're not going to just boost this up to 360 or make this a 180. We're going to keep these numbers the same. So we're going to be flying in between the little indices, the marks on our heading indicator and also on our ADF. We're going to fly this outbound, then we're going to turn inbound, and you notice the difference. The angle of correction to intercept the 177 bearing going inbound is 45 degrees. Since we're going inbound, we'll be looking at the pointer of the ADF unit. So remember the old saying, push the head, pull the tail. Now I've had a lot of questions, a few, like what does it mean to push the head and pull the tail? Do you continually turn, or do you stop turning, or do you use a certain heading? Well, we're going to show you how that happens. So just to overview, we're going to take off on runway 34, climb up to 6,000 feet, fly that outbound, track this bearing away from the station, do a procedure turn, look at the 45 degree intercept, and fly that back inbound, doing our best to be the top gun of the ADF, and that's to cross right directly over that NDB. We're not going to be to the right of it. We're not going to be to the left of it. We're going to be right over top of it. And how are we going to do that? with precise control of heading and precise control ADF pointer. Not that we control that, it always points to the station. And then going outbound, we're going to do the same thing. It's going to go outbound, do a procedure turn, come inbound, cross over the station, fly outbound, and then we will fly the procedure inbound and come in for a landing. Just hopefully a quick burner. What are our altitudes are going to be? We're going to start off at about 6,000 feet, 8,000, 5,600. We have to be in there. We're going to choose 6,000. Once we get cleared for the approach and we are on a portion of this procedure, we can come down to 4,400 feet. Then we will descend down on this non-precision approach, as long as we're within 10 nautical miles, down to 3,580. I'm going to call it 3,600 feet. Circling is not authorized. We're on contract. Remember, a successful go-around is improbable if initiated past the missed approach point. Today, we have VFR conditions. Let me show you a little nav map now. Here is the holding pattern that's depicted on the chart for the NDB. This is not the RNAV GPS 34. This is the NDB 34. We're going to take off. This is what I made in little nav map. I just scrolled into the NDB since that's where the course comes off of. Did a right click and then it says measure distance from NDB. Well, that's what these lines are. And it gives you the magnetic heading indication. Oops. So we're going to track this outbound. We're going to do a procedure turn to the left. And then we're going to turn inbound and intercept. I took the liberty of extending this line out so it indicates the inbound course to the beacon. This is the outbound course. This is the bearing from the station. This is the bearing to the station. On the other side, I created this. Since the little nav map didn't have the procedure, I did another one. This is the outbound course of 177. Here's the procedure turn, and then here is the inbound magnetic bearing to the station. We're not going to deal with the holding pattern. That's going to be in part 3. Okay, so let's get started and we'll explain this as we fly. The airplane's up and running. I actually put the procedure in here so we can see the holding pattern, just kind of as a reference. The 430 has the terrain in here now. The airplane has been pre-flighted and we are almost ready to go. Let's just do some real quick checks. First of all, top to bottom compass is indicating 345. So let's put 345 in our heading indicator. Yep, I always do the long way around. There's 345. Altimeter is 2992 standard. We do have winds out of the west of about 17 knots. Let's just do our checks down here where fuel is on both. Takeoff trim is set. Cowl flap is open. I use a little bit of right trim in here. This is the Laminar X-Plane 172 constant speed propeller. I believe the engine is 200 horsepower. So it's nice to have that little extra horsepower in the airplane. I do have views I can pop up here, left and right. And I have this little airplane icon down here. And that's part of the recording stuff. So I got to work on that. I'm going to get rid of something here. I don't need my frame rate data. We're looking good. Once we get up in the air, I'm probably going to scroll instruments in closer so that we can look at our heading indicator and we can look at our pointer. This always needs to be checked against the compass during straight and level flight, smooth flight. The whiskey compass or the wet compass is just like a little child. It doesn't want to settle down. You might be wondering, where did the term whiskey compass come from? Well, back in the day in World War II, or maybe even earlier, sometimes the compass up on top of the glare shield here, or wherever it was in the airplane, it has a liquid in there. Well, you don't want to use water. You don't want to use fuel. Although maybe you could. But they used to, if they leaked out and they didn't have the proper kerosene or whatever liquid to put in it, somebody would grab a bottle of scotch or a bottle of whiskey and they would fill that thing up with whiskey. Now you might say, well, why whiskey? Or vodka. Because it doesn't freeze. Any of you vodka drinkers out there, where do you keep your vodka? I know I keep my vodka in the freezer. I just love to have cold vodka, so it doesn't freeze. I imagine there is a freezing point, but they used to call them whiskey compasses, and that's where the term whiskey came from. I believe they use kerosene in them. I'm not quite sure, but it's some kind of clear liquid that doesn't freeze once it goes below freezing. Okay, enough of that trauma or trivia. We're good to go. We got fuel. Engine's warmed up. Let's roll. I'm just going to swing around here. Here's our windsock. Direct crosswind. I don't make things easy. Pick a runway in between mountains where a go-around is improbable, and we also have a crosswind. But what we do got going for us, I put some VFR conditions in here. I have no idea what season it picked. It looks like it's springtime. And there's the mountainous terrain. Since the winds are coming from the left-hand side, I'm going to do a left turn into the wind. That'll help my climb rate. So we'll be scooting up here along this range and fly out this way. Once we go out to the left, then we're going to do a right turn back to the course, and we'll start this video. So one last thing here, 345, 345, that looks good. We're ready to go. Crosswind controls. Airspeed's alive. Controls completely deflected into the wind. I'm getting a lot of weather veining here. There's 60. Nose goes up. Oops. And let's do a right turn. Still showing a bit of yellow here on our terrain. Decent rate of climb going on. Let's clean the flaps up. I don't think I'd go this direction in real life. You can see how the winds are blowing us around. Okay, we're clearing the peaks. Not by much. Woo. Now we're clear. All right, our first action. We can come back. Props go 25. Manifold pressure 25 for our climb power setting. And let's go out of 3,000 for 6,000. Let's do a right turn to a heading of 357. I'll put some left and right scenes up for a bit. We can enjoy the X-plane haze. We are tracking outbound, so we'll be looking at the tail of the ADF pointer. In front of us, as you see here. I'm going to scroll in for the instrument panel, so it'll be like I am on IFR flying. I'm not able to see out the front of the airplane. Make it easier for everybody here to see. Scroll in a little bit more. Let's go across, bring these over. Again, we're going to be paying attention to the heading indicator and the ADF pointer. $4,500 for 6. Okay, let's pick up our heading. There's 357 right there on the heading indicator. Now we want to get back to our course. So I'm going to look at the pointer. Which way do I turn? Well, I need to turn, I look at the head of the pointer and it's pointing to the right. Some people say turn away from the tail. But a lot of times I just look at the pointer head because I do that both inbound and outbound, and it says a right turn. Well, how far am I going to turn? I'm on 357. I'm paralleling the course outbound right now for 6,000 feet. This is showing going outbound how many degrees? 10, 20 degrees. Turn right 20 degrees. 357 to 007 to 0017. We can even make it 30 degrees. Let's do a 30-degree intercept. My angle correction now is 30 degrees. We are right in between the little 5-degree mark and a 10-degree mark there. That's how precise we're going to be. Again, these are the top views. Top left view, outside, top right view. I'm scrolled in so far, we're seeing the instrument panel. Okay, so 357, 007, 017, 037, that's 30 degrees. Remember, we're pulling the tail up to the 30-degree mark. So if I'm pulling it, and I'm looking at this, it hasn't gotten pulled up to that 30-degree mark. That's what it means to pull the tail. When we put that intercept heading in there, we're now causing the tail to get pulled to the amount. If we keep going, we went through, we're going to call it 6,500. If we keep going and the pointer ends up 20 degrees, we went past it, okay? So let's go ahead and bring some power out. And now let's turn back to our outbound heading because we're at 30 degrees. Let me just scroll out just to check my powers here. I have props about 2,000 and I want my manifold pressure about 19 or so. 2020, let's square the numbers. And let's use 6,500. And let's turn to our outbound heading of 357. Trying to get the airplane trimmed off level for hands flight. So you saw we had a 30-degree correction. At this point now we have a 0-degree correction. So therefore we should have a 0-degree deflection. Well, let's take a look at that. I ended up with 5 degrees too far. So 5 degrees, I'm going to double that, 10. Maybe I'll make it 20. So 357, 337. That's 20 degrees. I'll scroll back in. Okay, so there's our correction. That's where the course is. That's 10, 20, I'm sorry, 227. There you go. It's so weird when it's close like that. 10, 20, 30. So let's look at the tail. The tail is pretty much a little bit on the outside of 30. We're dragging it, pulling it up to 30 degrees. So I'm going to hold that heading. Everything's stabilized. Let me go ahead and lean out the mixture here on the EGT. Okay, 327. 337, 347, 357, 30 degrees. There's the pointer, right on 30 degrees. But let's turn to our outbound heading again. Let's see what happens with the pointer. There's 10 degrees, should be approximately 10 degrees. There's 357. 357 here, right in between those marks. And look at the pointer, we got 0 degrees. Now I know I have a wind from the west over here, pushing this way. That's why I put that little heading bug on the wind. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself a 10-degree correction to the left. Got to be on the other side of that, so that's going to be 347. Starting with 10 degrees wind correction. So there you go. We got our nose is to the left, and the tail is to the right. The amount of correction is 10 degrees. The amount of deflection is 10 degrees. So it's like the field goal poles. And we're splitting the uprights. As you can see how close it is. There we are, right in the middle. And let's look, and we're still at 10 degrees, looking good. Okay, well, let's do the procedure turn. I don't even remember what the procedure turn number is. I'm going to check my little nav map. But our outbound course will be 312. Okay, so let's get on that. We are going outbound, and then we're going to turn left at 312. All right, left turn now. I'm going to take some of the power out so that we can get back down to 6,500 feet. Vertical speed indicator shows a descent. I'm just doing half standard right here. Looking for 312. See that? 310. Let's get to 312. That's how small these changes are. We are descending slowly. Little turns on the transition instrument right here. Get us back to 312. Turn, yes. Time, yes. We'll go outbound for about a minute. Maybe longer to give us some more time. As long as we stay within 10 miles, which we're pretty close to that. 6,500 feet, we're a little bit higher. We're going to start descending down to 6,000 now. All right, well, let's do our right turn inbound. What's the heading inbound? Shit, I don't know. Okay, let's look at the reciprocal of 312. That's going to be 120, 132. Okay, so we're going to do a right turn to 132. I know I got the wind from the west. It's going to be pushing me in towards the course. So I'm getting pushed. I might want to make sure I'm kind of handling that standard rate turn pretty solidly so I can have a good solid wings level inbound to intercept the 177 bearing to the station. I always forgot, there comes 312. Let's start rolling out. That'll get us onto, there's 310, and there's 132. All right, turn, yes, 132. Time, no need to time. Twist, well, we don't have to twist. But now, as we're flying inbound, what's the amount of correction? 40 degrees from that 177 right there, okay? There's 6,000. So I'm going to be counting when the angle of correction, which is 45. Let's look at our ADF pointer here. I'm going to scroll in a little deeper. 10, 20, 30, 45. We're almost getting to the 45 degree mark. So when the angle of correction equals the angle of deflection, we're on course. So that's pretty close. We're going to turn now. Inbound course is 177. And when we turn to 177, we should have a 0 degree deflection, because when the amount of correction equals the amount of deflection, we're on course. Well, let's see what the winds did to us here first of all. There's 6,000 feet. There's 177 rolling out. A quick look. There's 177. It's about 5 degrees to the right. Now I know we're flying towards the station now, so we're going to push the head. But I want to get this more precise. I got a little bit of time here, not much. 177 gives me about 5 degrees. So I'm going to do a correction to the right. I'm going to say 5 degrees for the wind correction angle. We'll come back to that. But let's go about 20 degrees. Okay? So 177, 187, 197. There's 197. Oops, sorry, I got to go a little further. 177, 187, 197 is right there, just before 210. Okay, what's our amount of correction? 20 degrees. Remember, we pushed the tail, or we pushed the pointer towards the amount of correction. And if I look at that, I'm more than 20 degrees. I immediately know that I went too far. So we're going to go back. Going to go back to 177. Then let's double check our compass. There's 177. Well, we're doing pretty good. We're about 2 degrees off now. So, but with that wind correction, I'm just going to put in about a 10 degree correction for now. All right, there you go. There's the procedure turn. That was flying outbound. Now we're flying inbound, and our whole goal is to not chop the top of the beacon off, but fly right over top of the beacon, so that we get a smart swing, a swift swing of the ADF pointer, either left or right, once it makes up its mind. So my angle of correction, well, it's about 13 degrees. Remember, we're pushing the head of the pointer to it, as long as we're maintaining a constant heading. I have, and what I did, I counted from 180 to 190, that's 10 degrees, and the 177, there's 3 degrees to get to 180, so that's 13. So we're right about 10. We're about 3 degrees off of it. That's not too bad. Let's see what the pointer's doing. If it's stationary, that means we found kind of our wind correction angle. It's really stable. I'm about 11 degrees here on the pointer. Now this Intercept North, that makes nothing. That's no different. We're not using any of the numbers around here. Remember, we're just looking, counting the degrees. I'm going to put this on, let's just put this on 030. Okay, let's go back to our 10 to 13 degree correction. We're at 6,000 feet. There it is, 10 degrees. When the amount of correction equals the angle of deflection, you're pretty much on course. So that's right about 10 degrees, 11 degrees, so we're right in there. I'm allowing the wind to push us in a bit. I don't know what little nav map's going to show us. Let's check nav map. Yeah, we are kind of in a correction angle. The winds are kind of holding us off from that, but we do have a nice angle coming into it. Okay, let's check that again here in just a moment. Here's the beacon. There's the airplane. See where I'm at, wings level. And that does say, remember we were a little bit left course. Yeah, we're pretty close. Winds were still blowing us off. Yeah, see, they're blowing us off a little bit because pushed ahead too. So let's just pick up a little bit more of an angle here. I'm going to go 20 degrees. So 177, 177 to 187 to 197. That's 20 degrees. Pointer is pretty good. Let's check our compass. We're on 200, which is good. Pointer is starting to get pushed off a little bit. Could be from us turning. As we get closer to the station, I'm going to start taking out some of that correction. This may seem boring, or you know, what value do I get out of this? You'll be amazed. Adding in the compass, adding in the ADF pointer, which we forgot to. I don't know why the ADF doesn't want here. What's our amount of correction right now? Well, 5 degrees, about 8 degrees. Look at that, we're right about 8 degrees there. If I go right to 177, let's see what we get. There it is. So that, come on. There's 177 there. We're right on zero, but that was because of the wind correction angle that we used. So let's get that in there again. I'm just going to use 10 degrees. Paying very close attention to that, because 1 or 2 degrees off on your heading indicator makes a big difference right here. I'm 10 degrees right now. I look at this, I'm pushing the pointer to 10 degrees. It's a little bit past, but it's working out really good. I'm just going to hold this heading. The winds are working on us from the left, but we do have nose right. Pointer went a little bit too far, so let's see what happens. So close to the station. See how slowly I'm turning? $177, there we go. And a little bit more, 1 or 2 degrees. I take everything I can get. If you're going to be the Top Gun, there it is, 177. We had that wind correction angle in there. We are 0 degrees. It is still a little bit to our right, but let's get that wind correction angle in there. Hopefully we get a good swing on the ADF pointer here. I can actually see it on our unit. We can come in here a little bit closer. See us right there? Okay, there's a little bit more than 10 degrees. That's 13. Wings level on the attitude indicator. Pointer is showing about 13 degrees, which is what we have here. The 3 onto that 10. There you can see the airplane coming into the, there's our wind correction angle. There's the beacon, looking pretty good. Let me get rid of this. Let's go back to our 10-degree correction. Quick about it. There we go. We're going to hold that 10-degree correction. I'm going to take some of it out because looking at little nav map, we lost a bit there. Now we're going to watch how this needle, hopefully, will do its thing. I'm just going back to our outbound course. .177. See how smartly it's starting to go? It's not just taking its time. That's not too bad. A real strong NDB, you'll get that snap pretty good. I'm pretty proud of that. I feel like I'm a Top Gun on the ADF pointer. Okay, that was that part. We went outbound, did a procedure turn, came inbound. We didn't home to the station. We realized what our wind correction angle is, about 10 degrees. So I'm going to go back to 187. We are now flying outbound. We're going to use the tail. And let's see where we're at. Sometimes things are different on the south side than they are on the north side. Kind of like the mountain ridge. We always say the weather's always different on the north side than it is on the south side. It can be completely different. Go through the mountain, go through the tunnel. You left sunshine behind and you entered into rain or snow on the other side. Okay, so we're on our outbound heading now for the approach. Let's take a look at the approach plate. So we're going outbound. We'll do the procedure turn. We'll come back in, and then we're going to land the airplane. We're going to start descending down to 4,400 feet out of 6,000. Our MDA is 3,600 feet. Missed approach, climb straight out 4,200, then a right turn back to the beacon. Got it. Okay, let me go there. We're 10-degree correction. Looking at the tail of the pointer. Remember, we always pull the tail up to the amount of correction. And I'm just going to double check here. Like I say, if you're ever in doubt, just go back to the outbound heading. Which is 177. Let's look at our pointer. More of the tail is a little bit, well, we're right on the money. I mean, it's kind of split right there. I'm actually going to use the azimuth on this next procedure turn. These numbers mean nothing to us right now. The only thing that we're looking at is counting the degrees of deflection. Oops. There we are again, 13 degrees. Let's see. Pull the needle up, 13, so we're not too bad. Let's start descending down to 4,400 while we do our procedure turn. What is our procedure turn? I already forgot. I could look at it here. 222, 2222, and the inbound's 42. So we're doing a right turn to 222. Everybody says, oh, fly standard rate, standard rate. Well, it depends. If I got a tailwind pushing me, I'll go full standard rate and a little bit more. If I don't have that, if I have a headwind, I might only use half standard rate. Okay, 5,000 to go. 222. Oops, back to we're in the clouds now. to 222. Turn, time, twist, throttle, torque. Maybe a little bit of left rudder. Check our compass. $5,000. Still on 222. That's about 220. Turn, time, twist, throttle, torque. I'm going to bring my mixtures up a bit. I'm going to get the landing lights on. Compass, lights, instruments are all in the green. Craft. And we said our inbound course will be, what of that? 42. So if I forget, I just look down here. Oh, that's 42. Okay, left turn, there's 4,400 feet. Let's fly the airplane, aviate, navigate, communicate. So power is going to come back up to about 19 inches. And let's start our left turn now to 042. Now here's something I want to show you. Since our inbound course is going to be 042, I'm going to put this on 042. I've just converted it over to a poor man's RMI. 042 is coming around. There it is. 4,400 feet. Full standard rate. Start to roll out. There's 42 degrees right on the numbers. Procedure, when we go inbound, we can start descending down. We're at 4,400 feet. 42, that's a 45 degree correction. So when we look at this, 10, 20, 30, 45 right there, we're pushing the head of the pointer to 45 degrees. But since we are on 42 and we change this to 42, what's our inbound course? 357. So when the pointer gets to 357, that's when we turn inbound. A lot of people like to do that. Me, I generally don't, because it's just another number I'm looking for. I don't know, it's weird. But I just keep it where I just read the amount of degrees, because I don't have all that little off thing right there, okay? So there we are at 342, waiting for the pointer head to get to 357. Right now we're at 360, just a couple more degrees to go. 342, and there it is, 357. Get that 357 right there. So we're turning to 357 on our heading indicator. And there it is. Looking pretty good. And I see the pointer is a little bit to the left in here. So we'll make a correction. See, that kind of confuses me, but it pretty much should be getting us on course. So I'm going to do a 20 degree correction. We're pretty much on course, so we're going to come in down here. I don't see the runway yet. Actually, I do now. It's in front of us. So that worked out pretty good. Let's go 10 degrees to the left. I'm going to start seeking 80 knots. I have about a 10 degree correction in there. Remember, we push the head. And scroll out so I can see the runway. It looked a lot closer, didn't it? Still flying the approach though. Looking for 80 knots. Okay, mixtures forward. Gas, undercarriage, mixture props, compass, lights, instruments, flaps, we're good. I'm going to do 10 degrees. That'll help me with that 80. Now we're going to still fly this sucker. See that? We'll just leave it at north though. put north right on that orange indices there. Now I'm going to put it on 030. Okay. So we are 10 degrees to the right, but we got to go back to our inbound heading. That's what happens when you get busy. Just go back to your inbound course. 357. It's pointing 15 degrees to the left, so let's do 30 degrees. There's 10. There's 20. And there's 30. I want to get on this course real quick. So I should be looking for 30 degrees. There's 10, 20, 30. We should see the pointer getting pushed down to 30 degrees, but there is a crosswind. I have the runway in sight. It's at 20 degrees now. We've got a 30 degree correction in there. 10, 20, 30. And you can see the runway. Let's see. I'm going to get rid of these things. And right there's the runway. 10 degree flaps in there. Still got my 30 degree correction in there. And the airplane is 20 degrees. Come in with a little more power. And let's scroll out a little bit. Clearing the terrain. Real bush pilot flying here. Alright, I still have my 30 degree correction in there. The pointer's coming down to 30 degrees now. So let's go back to our inbound course. Still a little ways to go, and we're good. Our correction is about 20 degrees. It's really gusty down here. I'm holding 10 degrees now. I'm using the crab method. Alright, I'm going to go 20 degrees flaps. Runway is made. And I'm going to turn the airplane so we can look at the NDB beacon. That's what we were flying over right there.